Hi, welcome to the Mad Monk Show. It's where I get heavily meditated and then I talk about a topic. I I hope to inspire conversations. I like the feedback and I really hope that people engage with their ideas because even though I have come aware, I've become aware of many solutions to problems. There doesn't mean that there isn't even a better solution out there, and maybe you're the one that holds it. I don't know, right? And so I just want to get topics started, and the topic for today is housing, because well, that's an important one to me. I really think that everyone, everywhere, should be able to have access to a space that they feel safe, and whether or not, whether that's a Mad Monk cave or um, whatever a person kind of desires for their housing, it can be done in a whole bunch of ways that doesn't involve a 30-year mortgage or the perpetual debt of rent every month. Because I know a lot of people that are paying well over $1,000 a month just to maintain shelter in their home. And if you're maintaining, if just the cost of the maintenance of your shelter is $1,000 a month, let's just do some quick math here, right? So $1,000 a month, and you have 12 months in the year, so we're talking $12,000 for your rent or a payment, right, for your housing. And so over 1 year, that's $12,000. Over 10 years, how much is that? That's $120,000. And if you were to live for 50 years, which I hope you will, we're talking much more, right? We're talking a lot more. We're talking pretty close to $1 million or more. We're talking around the $700,000 range. I think in my mental math, that isn't where my focus is right now. My focus is on housing. So sustainable housing shouldn't cost $1 million over the course of your lifetime to maintain. A lot of animals, they just dig a hole in the ground and then they live in that because it takes care of them from freezing to death, and they don't have many personal belongings, so they don't have to have a larger area to be able to store things, and it gives them a place to sleep away from predators, and if they did have things like a raccoon, right? He goes around and he collects little things. If the raccoon has a place to store his things, and most of the time he's out just kind of conducting life, like a lot of people are. We're working 8 hours a day or more, and then we have the gym membership to go to in the mornings or in the afternoons or whatever. And so there's very little time actually being spent in the shelter that we're paying over the course of a lifetime, probably well over $1 million to maintain for most people. Most people living in the standard American dream have that as an obligation. What if there was another way? What if the castings of the kings of Babylon, like all the stuff that's being thrown away from cities, like the glass bottles and the tires. Look at tires. Like, tires are a resource that it's, like this big. And so it's manufactured with oils and a lot of stuff, rubber, right? Rubber material comes from rubber trees, right? Because it all grows from trees. Money grows from trees, right? Yeah. So anyway, so you take this rubber and you form it into this big old giant tire. And this big old giant tire costs like $500 to buy. Or if you get a cheap one, you're talking like $100 or $80, right? But still, $80 or several $100s or thousands of dollars for a big round thing that holds air, a balloon of sorts, right? Okay, so then we use this much of the edge of it and we throw the rest of it away. I was like, ever since I was a kid, I was like, man, that's nuts. That just does not make sense. I'm like, why couldn't you just like, have like a honeycomb, like a spongy material or something instead of air inside there? Then you wouldn't get flat tires either, And now that a couple of the manufacturers are actually creating things that resemble that. But I mean, we're talking. This is a reminder of why if you want to do something, you just need to do it. Right? Because if you're expecting that somebody somewhere else is going to do it, it just doesn't get done when you think it should be done. I mean, I knew at 3 years old that there should be magnetic propelled vehicles. You should be able to levitate and propel a vehicle by the angularity of a magnetism, right? And now there's trains that levitate and they shoot really fast in a direction that the magnets are tilted, right? And you have magnetic propulsion. I was like, well, that makes sense, because then you don't have to even use fuel. Anyway, let's get back to shelter. So the reason I went into tires is because so when that big, huge $100 or more tire is then used up, according to what it's intended to be used for, does it become trash or does it become treasure is dependent upon whether or not we know how to use it beyond its usefulness as it was intended, right? And so in that, what I've used a lot, we'll just say a lot of tires to you lay them on the side, and then you fill them full of dirt, and you pack them. You pack the area that was air. You pack that with dirt, and you pack them a lot, and so you have effectively made like about a 200 or more pound brick. And now if you lay barbed wire in between the rows of tires that are stacked like bricks, so you have 2 of them here, then you have one more like splitting it, and you keep filling it up with dirt, well then you can build walls. And if you build walls made out of huge, heavy, giant rubber bricks, well then, and you can build a roof out of a lot of different things. Wood is an easy one, or there's a lot of vehicles that are being scrapped, and there's a frame in most of these vehicles, and in this frame of the vehicle, it's intended to support weight and to be strong, right? And so that also could be a metal roof over a section of walls that can create like a shelter, right? So that's one way of doing it. And if you don't want to be looking at the tires, which not everybody wants to look at tires, some people just want to look at a plain a smooth wall, right? And so what people do is they've taken chicken wire and attached the chicken wire to the face of the tire, and then taking concrete and spreading concrete over the chicken wire to create a smooth wall. And then that would make it to where it also wouldn't, you wouldn't be getting a tire smell. But because the temperature is stabilized and it's not being subject to light anymore, it's unlikely to degrade very soon. So that's one of the options and what we could be using as a building resource. And when a tire catches on fire, when it's in like a tire dump, like when in Iran or Iraq or whatever, well they burn really bad because they're made of oil. But when it's filled full of dirt, it doesn't really, it's only the surface that's burning, so it's easy to put it out. It's not like burning all the way through, so it's really easy to put a fire out that's on a tire if the tire is full of dirt. A little bit of water, done. It's not holding a lot of that energy, So another resource that is being cast away by the kings of Babylon, I guess I should go into that for a moment. What is a king of Babylon? Well, the king of Babylon is one of the people of a city that there's a lot of things that aren't making sense. You know, I mean, paying to exist on every level to me doesn't make sense. No animal on earth does it. Only the human being is the one smart enough to be able to be trained to pay to exist. So, I so we call that a king of Babylon, right? And everybody's got their kingdom, and you know sometimes it's a condominium that looks like an apartment but is privately owned, or sometimes it's the house in the block that has another house that looks just like it, and another house that looks just like it, and luckily some of them are brown and some of them are gray. You know, that way you know which one is yours. They all grow grass instead of gardens. So and everything is trash. Once it's no longer what it was intended for, a glass bottle that brought your jelly to the house is now trash when the jelly is gone, right? And that's normal. And the plastic bags that brought the bread back from the grocery store, that plastic is now trash because it's no longer got bread in it, right? So what I've learned is to how to recycle these items that are typically cast away, but are still really functional, but in a different way. And so that's kind of what alchemy is about. Alchemy is that it's not just turning lead into gold. I mean, how boring is that? There's so much gold and so much lead that just leave it the way it is, right? But there's other things that are like not seen as valuable. You know, the glass, the tires, the tin cans, the plastic, the food scraps, the paper, the cardboard, all of these things that are just cast away are actually very beneficial. They just need to be used in a different way. They need to be sorted so that way like items can be treated in like ways. And you know, there's a lot of ways that we can be doing this. So I'm trying not to make this video too terribly long. So some of the items you can research if you're interested on this topic of sustainable housing are earth ships. You know, because we're here on Earth, right? At last I checked, this place is called Earth. And if you're going to be navigating a space, you kind of have to have a ship to navigate a space. And if you want to be anchored in one space, you choose a house. And that house has an address, so that way you can order things and people can find you, and it makes life pretty simple, right? I mean, because UPS driver trying to find somebody on the open ocean is going to have some really rough time without navigation, without navigation, without a geographic location, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So the other ways of living, earth ships, cob homes, bottle construction. With the bottles, you can take a bottle, you know, because if you take a round bottle, it's like this big, and you put it on its side, and then you put some concrete around it, and then you put another bottle by its side, some concrete around it, and another bottle by its side. You get my idea. You keep going with this. It becomes a whole big house. And if I was better with video editing, right now, pictures of glass houses would pop up, but luckily you have the internet too. And so if you look that up, you'll see glass houses. And there's ways that we can be building like this. You know, concrete and glass, when they are exposed to fire, they don't burn very easily. And there's a lot of people that lose their homes every year due to fire. You know, I mean, they have a Christmas tree, so they bring a Christmas tree in, you know, right after Thanksgiving, and you know, and by December 10th, it's already pretty dry because, you know, that's just the way it happens when the house is 70 degrees and the tree thinks it is 30 degrees, and then it was cut off from its source of moisture, right? So it burns up, catches on fire, leaves people homeless or houseless until the insurance company decides if they're gonna repair your home, or if they're gonna just whatever, you know. So if that wasn't as present in our life experiences, in our shelters, we probably wouldn't even need to be buying insurance, because I mean, if your house isn't going to burn down and it's not going to float away in a flood and it's unlikely to be damaged by wind, well, there's not really much of a reason to have insurance. You could just have a little sign or an expectation on the edge of your property saying, hey, you have to be responsible for yourself if you're coming on this private property, right? I mean, because that should be sufficient. That people need to realize they need to be self-responsible. Say, hey, this place is dangerous. You might bump your head if you fall down because you tripped over your shoes. I don't know. You should pay attention where you're walking all the time, so that way people don't have to have insurance just in case you bump your head because it's your fault, right? So that's another thing we should start thinking about is maintenance of self-responsibility when we go onto other people's properties. So if your house doesn't burn down and you built it out of trash and somebody else's, the King's castaways, we call it that. We won't call it trash. Oh, and I was going to get back to the Kings. Okay, so the King. People would say, well, you know what, that just sounds normal. I mean, that people have things and they throw them away, right? And it's also normal nowadays that they pick up their little portal, their oracle to the world, and they say, bring me a pizza. I would like it with pepperoni and Russian olives and mozzarella cheese and balsamic vinegar and anchovies from ancient Peruvian desert fossilized remains. And you know what? You could probably get that. I mean, you might pay a lot for that pizza, but 20 minutes, it'll be delivered to your door. No time in history have we had that level of affluence, And when this device is a year old, oh my God, the next one's out. So I must cast this one cast it to Craigslist and go to the iPhone store and pick up my new iPhone, of course. So the King's castaways, these are all the things that are broken, but yet not, or they're used but not used up. But they don't always make it to the Craigslist castaway section or Facebook Marketplace or Let It Go or whatever the local bulletin board at the grocery store, right? We used to have those, still do, in the town that I grew up in, little tiny town. More like a community, people know each other. People care that people's houses burn down, and so we talk about solutions to problems that exist that are not yet being addressed suitably to prevent it from happening. And there's a lot of people that have no house right now. And not everybody needs a full house. I mean, how often? Okay, when I have a house and I have a kitchen and I have a laundry room and I have a bathroom and I have a living room and I have a dining room and I have this room and that room, how often are those being used? Really, even the kitchen and the bathroom, those are like pretty busy ones. I mean, that's where a lot of stuff's getting done. And I mean, really, you're talking 30 to 40 minutes a day though in those rooms, right? And so then the living room, well, I live everywhere I go, so I don't really have a room specified to living because it's not even as functional as I'd like it to be. So I guess I can call my garage my living room because it's a little more functional. But how much space do I really need? And really, I mean, an 8x10 room is sufficient for a prisoner, right? And a prisoner doesn't have a whole lot of personal possessions. And the less personal possessions I have, the less space that I need. So really though, 8x10, if it was more comfortable than a prison room, and I could just come and go whenever I wanted to go, and I can have all my favorite things, and I feel that they're semi-secure, from thieves or, the weather or I don't know, Bigfoot carrying it away, that would make sense to have a smaller shelter that is easily accomplished. I mean, I can build a small shelter in one day, and I can just go and pick up pallets, and I could cut apart the pallets, and then I have free wood, and then I can go buy a handful of nails, well, a few handfuls of nails or screws, and be able to put the whole thing together, right? And so if I could do that in one day to have something sufficient to keep me from freezing to death, and I mean, you can do a lot of things with plastic and paper too. You can wad them up and you can put them in the walls as insulation. So there's a lot of things that we could be doing, and maybe they aren't done the same way as the standard American dream home is currently being built. But let me explain why that's not a bad thing. So the codes are a minimum standard of how to create something, right? Because maybe I say, hey, you should you should build a house, and then you say you shouldn't shoot on me, and right, and I shouldn't shoot on you, and because I don't know what you're capable of, right? So what we could do, though, instead of should do, is we could build our shelter ourselves beyond the minimum standard of creating something. But if we build it ourselves, what standard really doesn't matter except to our own standard, because we're not placing a burden or a problem on anybody else. But just hear me out. If you're only building something to a minimum standard, it's more likely to fall down, it's more likely to burn up, it's more likely to decompose or mildew or be susceptible to bugs or infestation than something built to a higher standard. So if you didn't know how to build something, and I tell you, hey, I know how to build you something, and you don't know me, you might go, well, God, how do I know if this guy's going to build me something that I would be happy with? And so there's models of what a standard, minimum acceptable standards looks like. We have communities full of them. They cost like $350,000 each, and they're big. They're pretty nice. They have systems that maintain the temperature. They have systems that carry away the waste. They have systems that bring you gas and fire. And they have systems that bring you water, and there's systems that water your lawn, and there's systems that take care of a lot of things, right? So there's minimum acceptable standards. And so if I'm a contractor, I'm going to contract you my time to build your structure. You would have a level of expectation of what is going to be accomplished by me. A minimum. You're going to get at least this. It's going to keep me warm. It's going to keep me dry. It's going to give me these amenities. And it's unlikely that I will need one for the next 5 years or something, right? Or 10 years or 15 or until it burns up, right? And then we hope we have insurance. But if I built a house, what if we used rocks? Rocks you can just go around and you can pick them up anywhere. If I used rocks and I just started stacking rocks up, would you think that's a pretty cool house? Because the kings and queens of the past did, and their houses, their castles, are still standing thousands of years later. They've been long gone. It's better than a lifetime warranty. Stacked rocks with concrete as a binding agent to make sure those rocks don't go anywhere. That's a fantastic way to create structure, because it also is a mass, and so it maintains temperature. In the nighttime it cools down outside, right? But it's been warming up all day. So when the sun was out, your house is warming up all day long because the outside is warming up because of the sun, right? And it's holding that temperature longer because of that weight that it has. And so then at nighttime, when it's starting to cool down, the house is still warm, and then the house starts cooling down because it's giving you warmth. Well then, so it reaches its coldest temperature before the sun comes up. So then the sun comes up, and it starts to warm it up, and it just works naturally. That's another way we can be creating homes. Plastic bottles. Plastic bottles filled full of dirt, which is free most places. I mean, like I've got acres and acres of it. I mean, you can just fill up the bottle and you ram it full of like dirt, and then you can use those as bricks. There's so many things. I mean, I've got videos that are where I use concrete, broken concrete. There are, let's see, some of the other search terms. Hopefully you have a piece of paper somewhere you can write, type some of these down or write some of these down. Like hobbit homes, earth integrated structures. There's just so many really cool ways that we can be providing sustainable shelter, that I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of those, because the standard American dream house, it's only intended to work for you for 30 to 50 years. I mean, the roofing, it's not intended to last that long. Whereas in this earth integrated housing, most of the time you have a layer of earth over the top of it. And so the grass and the dirt on top of the roof, really, it protects everything that you've done underneath it. And it's typically at a slope, so water just runs off of it, because that's the way water works. Gravity is a fantastic tool. I mean, it's a tool you don't even have to put batteries in. It just always works. So there are things that we could be doing towards our energy consumption too. There are ways to make energy. I mean, our dogs have tons of energy. We should have treadmills. I haven't done it yet. I mean, that's the thing, is I guess I'm waiting for somebody else to do these things, but I'm doing as many of them as I can, as often as I can. And that's my New Year's resolution, is to spend every day creating something of value, something that reduces my dependency on needing something from somebody else. Why are we needing power from somebody somewhere else when our dogs are making power, and the wind blowing by our house is making power, and the sun that comes out every day is providing power, and the ley line energy that surrounds us, and the radio frequencies and the television, all of that is energy that other people in the past have learned how to harness. But why aren't we using that technology? Technology exists to solve all the solutions to the problems we have. And like, I'm not, my expertise is not in electrical field management. But somebody's is. And somebody else might know how to oh, well, silly, you just use a flux capacitor and an antenna and condensers and capacitors and googads and dillywhackers, oh my, right? I mean, of course, I mean, that's all you do. And I'm like, well, shit. If I would have known that, I would have already done it. But we're all a piece of the puzzle, and my piece of the puzzle is heavily meditated. I've learned how to manage stress, and by managing my stress, I've made my mind in a way that I'm not just seeing things as a problem anymore. I'm taking the time, and I recognize if I follow the problem all the way down to where it's the root of the problem, it's easier to fix it, right? I mean, because if you have a lot of problems, you have to realize, all right, wait a minute, there's got to be a root to these problems, and because nature doesn't struggle, nature aligns with the divine design. And my phone's telling me that it's almost ready to be done recording. So again, thank you for watching The Mad Monk. We're talking about housing and sustainability for maintaining shelter for everyone everywhere. Thanks.